Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Into the Void. I am Nick. That's Dan. Hold up, strike that, reverse it. In today's topic, we are going to be discussing a subject that most people choose to pretty much avoid at all costs because it brings up a lot of opinions, a lot of emotional trauma, and a lot of pain and anguish and agony and all that different kinds of stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health, specifically with men's mental health. It's a subject that is very difficult to talk about. Whenever it's brought up, it's kind of just tossed to the wind. It's talk about, oh, we should take it, talk about it more seriously, and it's kind of approached in a lighthearted way. So we figured we throw our 2 cents on it to kind of bring it more light and give it more screen time. So, Nick, what do we got for the first bullet point in discussing men's mental health?
Yeah, I think this is a good. So it might be a little bit different of how we normally approach things, but the normal topics we focus on are like maybe dark, mysterious, and untalked about. And this is kind of that untalked about section. Um, I feel like one point that really brought it to the front and made it most popular, I feel like, is Chris Rock. He brought up in his comedy that like unconditional love is for just women, children, and dogs. And a lot of his stuff is funny and people laugh about it, but he brings up a lot of good points, and it's sometimes just hard to dive into. And someone who also brought up this, well, first, before going any further, we're just two guys. There's of course there's women's mental health as well. We're not negating that or anything, but we feel like this isn't talked about as much. Um, I would say my first point is I feel like if guys bring it up, like your feelings, your emotions, or your problems, I feel like the first or like the only answer is like, well, that's how it is, or suck it up and move on, and that's kind of it. And that's why we don't really bring anything up because there's usually no answer for it. So continuing with the Chris Rock, what he brought up with, there's also a rapper Dax. I would highly recommend. He usually has like motivational music, and I really like listening to his stuff. But he has a song called "To Be a Man." He released it, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, and he used that line of "unconditional love is for women, children, and dogs." So if we want to start at that, we could take it from there.
Mm. Yeah, I would say in regards to men's mental health, tackling the subject and comparing. I don't like to use the word comparing in this instance, but it's kind of in that ballpark of kind of segregating it into different categories, I guess you could say. But like comparing men's mental health to women's mental health, it's I feel like it's two completely different things. And with like the song from Dax, I listened to that when he sent it to me. That really did strike a nerve. And um, rating a men's worth solely of just what they could provide and pretty much nothing else. That was such a strong statement, and it like that knife cut deep because of how truthful it is. And I really wish it wasn't that. And you just see like just I feel like a good example would be the first thing that comes to my head because I'm always out there a little bit is American Psycho when he introduces himself, he says where he lives first prior to his name. So it's basically the numbers that it's like um when you look at Elon Musk, you think, okay, he's a billionaire. Like just the number comes up first. You think of what he's worth first prior to him as a person. Like we don't I don't know if you know better than I what kind of person he is, like just like how he interacts with different people, or I don't know, but just using him as an example. But I feel like with men's worth, it's just what they provide, and they just pretty much put you on a pedestal or a scale of what you bring to the table, pretty much just at a money standpoint. And anything further than that, it's just completely discarded, or just uh, pushed off the table and brushed under the rug. And that's sad that it is that way. And women's health, mental health, really can't say much about it, because um, I feel like this is men's times to speak. I feel like whenever mental health is brought up on like the news or something like that, they always bring up like a struggling single mother or something like that, and you never hear the men's side of things. So I feel like that's where we kind of wanted to tackle with this episode, of just diving a little bit more on the med side of things. So starting off with the whole like what they're worth, not just who they are as people. That's not addressed anymore, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I completely agree. The fact that, to reiterate, just because we're focusing on this aspect doesn't downplay any other aspects. Obviously, mental health in general is important. And I will say, overall, I feel like it's getting a little better. I feel like back then, if you used to say, like, you went to a therapist or psychologist, you were seen as crazy. But now it's a little different. It's like, oh, good, you're attacking your mental health. That's fantastic. Well, helping your mental health. So I feel like we might be moving in a right direction, but still, it's that men's side where it's not dived down deep enough, because, like you mentioned, it might be seen as, because I don't want to self censor, and because there could be a lot of touchy subjects here, but people could see like, oh, men have it all, so they should just shut up, and that shouldn't be it. Like, for example, women might go through stuff like during pregnancy. We'll never know how that feels. It's not downplaying that. Like, they're going through difficult times and everything, and that's important. But we have our own problem. It doesn't negate our perspective. It doesn't mean that what we feel doesn't matter. But going into that aspect that you brought up of like Elon Musk and the numbers and everything, I just looked it up, by the way. He admitted to having Asperger's as a form of autism.
Mm.
Um, and I know it might have been a couple years ago, but he described he's his grind is ridiculous. He's like 24/7 just going at it. And that's why he created all these amazing companies. He has Tesla, he has SpaceX, and all these different I think he was involved with PayPal as well. But the dude used to sleep in his office. Like, he was working all the time. And then one day he like crashed from it, and he finally stated like, that's not how you should live. Like, you kind of need a little bit of a break every now and then. But I think, going back to Chris Rock, he also mentioned that, let's say you're talking to a girl and they're going out, or you're talking to a guy and they're going out with a girl. The first question is their appearance, how they look. When, if you're talking to a girl and they're going out with a guy, you ask, what does he do?
Mm.
And that's the first and priority thing. Now, some people like, oh, like, true love doesn't matter about money, and you could argue that. That's fine. And I forgot where I heard this, but they brought up a good point of like, find me a woman that says, oh, I'm in love with this guy and the guy works at McDonald's. Most likely that's not true. Now, if you're a teenager in high school or college, but if you're like, 50 years old, unless you're a general manager, higher up, but if you're still flipping burgers at 50, you're I don't know, like your social status isn't the same, but at the same time, you're still a person. You still have feelings. You're still going through things, and no one really looks at it that way. They're like, oh, that guy's making only $10 an hour. That guy's making $1 million an hour. He must be a better person. And that's not how it is.
I think when it comes to the money side of things, when it comes to like the value of a guy is solely based out of what he makes. I think people they really get stuck on um, if you make more money, you're just simply happier, and that's not the case at all. Like just I feel like even if you're making say and I love with all these like these videos online of just like dating stuff, experimental, like that kind of stuff. They're asking like people on the streets what a guy should be making in order for them to be even remotely considered of like going out with them, spending time with them, and just like devoting your time to them. Like what is like the bare minimum they should be making or something. And the bar a few years ago was like six figures, just automatically. Just that's just like baseline six figures. And now and that was like 100K a year. And now I'm seeing some people online. I don't know how truthful this is, but by the fact that it's still that bar is still set at that six figures, and now it's like 300K a year, 400K a year. That doesn't pretty much anything after 50K a year is just fun money to me. It's just you have to afford to live, sure. Do you have to live in luxury? No. Because again, that money, it doesn't buy happiness. It makes life easier, sure. But as far as like just, oh, this guy should be like this, like all these questions, this, that, and the other. What car does he drive? What neighborhood does he live in? How does he dress? How does he look? Is he clean cut? This, that, and the other thing. Never once was where's his mental state brought up. Like the his grind could be insane, and that's great. And there's that point in life where you just crash or you just get to a certain stage, like a mindset in your head that you just become numb or just desensitized to the world, people, and even yourself. And that's just not talked about. And that's sadly where a lot of people like that's the place like I'm like thinking of that I focus on. It's that like desensitization, not only from the world and people you can meet, but from yourself. It's like there's even a detachment from yourself that you feel like you're spectating like through your eyes, that you're not even like existing anymore. And that's like when you hit that point, like me, you just kind of laugh at it, like it's just something. It's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? And you make light of the situation, but it is it is crippling, and it is something that a lot of guys are going through right now. And it's disastrous is what it is.
I think that's a good word. It is disastrous. And I agree with what you said. Going back to like the happiness thing, I disagree with the 50,000 a year. I think it's honestly a little bit more because things are expensive. But I believe that I think there was a study. They like asked people like your salary and happiness levels, and it goes into like I don't know 90,000, and then like anything higher than that, your happiness basically stays the same. So like you mentioned, like it gets to a point where it doesn't matter. Um, but I mean, if we want, we could go into like the dating realm of that's. um, I think that's a very. It could be a very toxic environment. Um, that people people want to feel like they matter. They want to meet someone and just be happy together. And I remember I got to a point. We've all been on like the dating apps. I don't know if the apps suck or the people suck or both.
Both. Mainly the people, but the apps are not well optimized.
Yeah, so you could argue that the apps might attract a certain type of person. So the people that are on it are all very similar. And that similar could be like Starbucks lover, Sagittarius, and chicken nugget lover. And that's their personality. And, and like, I'm sorry, that's not a personality. And not to attack a certain gender, because I could only imagine what guys put. There could be tool bags and stuff, but I feel it's a lot of things are surface level of like what things like you do, or like I just mentioned, they're not personality at all, or mental health at all, or your actual thoughts. I remember when I was on some dating app, I've seen this multiple times actually, that if you're a Trump supporter, don't even bother. And I'm like, and I don't want to get political. It doesn't matter if you agree with him or not. The fact that you close your mind off to a whole other perspective is a red flag to me.
I think what in the dating scene, being neck deep in it, it is it's a wasteland of just useless wandering souls that are like people in limbo, just chasing them. That's a if you haven't read the book, anyway, but it feels like I think people lost the grasp of relationships require effort. Relationships require so much time and dedication. You are not perfect. The other person isn't perfect. And that's okay. All you have to be is just perfect for each other. Like you have to where they lack, you have to be strong in. And where you lack, they have to be strong in. Like you have to balance each other out. And with the whole dating scene, they think it's just supposed to be this seamless transition where they don't even need to put in any time, effort, or yeah, just that, just effort in every category. Like it just happens, and there's like people just don't understand that other person has a life. They have their own goals, their own passions, and they they have a open like a job opening if you will. They have a position opening where they're looking to fill that like personal part of them where they could like insert another person into their lives, but they still have their lives on top of you. So it's like we can fit that other person in our lives, but we have our own things going on. And just the whole like the whole focus is not on them. It's like what they're doing, and this is if you're like all driven and stuff like that. But yeah, the whole dating scene, it, there's nothing short of just wow. Like it wow. the, the things you encounter are it's it is shocking of how bad the dating scene is, especially if you were like in your 20s or in your early 30s. It is it's gotten to the point where, like me, in my situation, you just get so um uh it's a dis something uh
Disassociated.
uh
Numb.
no, you get like not embarrassed, you get like
Oh.
the hell is that word? I don't know. Like you just feel like you're a piece of crap, and like you just get that like solidified in your head. And um, it's I don't know. This is a touchy subject for me because it's anyway. The point I was getting at is you get to a point where you just give up and you just stop looking because there's nothing but trash and just good for nothing people out there, and you just lose yourself in this, and you just lose hope in humanity. I could keep going, but then it'll get personal and sad.
I will say, and we could dive into a little bit more on the men's side of things, but like you mentioned, I know I remember watching Steve Harvey. I think he's hilarious, but he had like a girl on, and there was just a ridiculously long list of what she's looking for, and just simply that person doesn't exist. And if you look at our attention spans these days of like TikTok and Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, our attention span is like what, 10 seconds?
Not even.
So when you look at relationships, it takes a little bit longer than that to establish that.
Like 5 years.
Yeah. So, and we could go into divorce and stuff later, but continuing on with dating points, on the men's side, there's rejection, where on the woman's side, usually, they don't have rejection. Usually the guy approaches them and they're like, hey, like if you want to talk or if you want to go out or something, and then they decide. And then if they say no, then the guy is rejected. And then that could continue. So there's rejection after rejection after rejection. And like you mentioned, if there's enough of that, then people just start giving up.
Mm-hmm.
And that mental state, I feel like, is unique to men's perspective, where females don't go through that. Given they go through, a whole other realm of things, of probably a lot of dirtbags going at them. But I don't believe that they go through the rejection that men do.
I feel like they go through pain and suffering like a cut, and guys go through pain and suffering like a stab. Like their suffering is like only so deep. It's shallow. It's surface level. Where guys, our pain and like that not even like fear of rejection, but just that anticipation and that acceptance of rejection. It's not even that to which we fear anymore. It's not even that to which we even feel anymore. It's to be expected. And where girls stand, like you said, they don't have that rejection. Like they just guys have to live with the fear of the girl can leave the guy at any point, at any time, for any reason, and get a guy within hours. Like it is that easy. Like a big subject thing that I like covered in my book a little bit. It's guys' mental health compared to women's mental health is a joke. Like it's women saying what mental health is almost insulting to what a guy's is. That basically to get reassurance, to get acknowledgement, to get any kind of um, response, basically what a girl has to do is just post anything, if that's a post of themselves or anything, whatever. They basically have 20 guys lined up for them of trying to put the tears back in their eyes. They have that luxury that they could just have a guy within hours, where guys don't have that luxury. And that's internally scary, and it's really disheartening that what women see a relationship with a guy is night and day what compared to what guys see women as. Because like guys see women as just these perfect beings that we just love them in so many ways. Like we love them unconditionally, but we love like every single feature about them. Like they're just perfect beings in our eyes. But to them, looking at us, we're kind of just looked at as tools, essentially. What it could be seen as sometimes, and it's kind of one-sided, though it feels.
It is kind of scary and sad. This is speaking in general. Of course, there are, certain situations that might be different. But I would say, in general, that's unfortunately largely true. Diving into conditional love, unconditional love, of even we could look at children and dogs. A dog could do anything. They could pee on your rug, rip up your couch, and whatever else, and you'll still love them. A baby, just to express what I am married, and we just had our first son. He's 4 months old, so went through that situation. He's pooping all over the place and screaming, and we still love him. That's unconditional love, similar to women. Again, not always. I'm saying in general, this is unfortunately largely true, I believe, where the guy has to, like, no matter what happens, we still have to provide and go through what we have to do. And if we bring up any problems that we face, our feelings, our emotions, one that shows that puts a risk out, because if we bring up our problems and we're mad at something, then they may be offended by it. So then we're like, okay, should I even bring it up at that point? But we could even dive into, again, on the men's perspective, once you're married, women don't have to worry about divorce as much. Men do. Just
as much. Not at all.
so, like, one day, it could just be like a bad day. A divorce happens, and the woman gets half of the guy's life. A woman doesn't have to worry about that.
There's
Same.
so many factors that just guys have to. That's just the thing you bring up, like guys worrying about things. That's pretty much just the thing. It's guys constantly have to worry about things, where that's their job, their relationship, and that covers a lot of avenues. But just those things that just like the source of their worth being their job could be at risk every single day. Same thing with their relationship, that could be at risk every single day over like the silliest things. It's like you could get fired for essentially no reason whatsoever, and now your worth is absolutely at zero. Or a relationship, you have an argument, and it could be about the silliest thing, and that's it. It's over. And now, guess what? Now you're just you think you're in a nightmare now. Like, just wait till the government gets involved. I love I loved Jim Carrey said a line. He's just like, I love you so much, I want to get the government involved.
I remember him saying that. But that's a good comparison, actually. A relationship versus, like, a job, essentially. But yeah, you could look at going back to how guys have to worry about a lot I feel like this stems a lot from Disney movies, of how people believe how life should just evolve. You find the perfect person and happily ever after. And that doesn't work, by the way. But looking at from the guy's perspective again, it's like when you find that special person, the guy worries about the engagement ring. Girl doesn't. Got to worry about the wedding. Girl doesn't have to. I mean, they plan it and everything. They've probably been planning it for years. There has been traditions where, like, the girl's father pays for it. I don't know if that's true anymore. But whatever. Then the house, the guy has to worry about that. The kid, the guy has to worry about, putting him through, or, the kid through college. And if there's a divorce with a child, God forbid, that's horrible. Not only does the kid suffer the most, but in a lot of circumstances, it falls back on the woman. The kid goes with her.
Yeah, when in talks of divorce, this is why I don't believe in marriage. It just from a guy's perspective, it just sounds like a bad investment to me. It's it's such a risk from the guy's perspective. It just doesn't add up. It's unless we're talking a prenuptial agreement, whatever it's called, that's off the table. And I think we're like guys, I'm sorry, like girls fall into is it looks like they're just getting married just for the sole purpose of getting married and say they got married. Like they're getting married because their parents want them to, and they're having children because the I want grandchildren, and it's like all that stuff. I feel like they're like pressured into it a little bit, and I think that's kind of an out for them a little bit. It's just like, oh, I have my hopes and dreams. I have my career paths. I could just have a kid, and now all my responsibilities are, I don't know. It's different generalizations and stuff like that. It's a lot of personal stuff, but oh my god, just running back to the dating scene one more time. I had a date with a girl a couple of months ago, probably a year or so, and she was disappointed that I wasn't a doctor or a lawyer. I'm just like, it says what I do in my bio. You think I would just hide the fact that, oh, I'm a doctor and like a lawyer during the weekends, you know? Like she was just like disappointed that I wasn't those two specific things. And anything I could have knew the president. Doesn't matter. I'm not a doctor or a lawyer, and she wanted nothing to do with me. I'm just like, so you want to split the bill, or
That's all right. I agree and disagree with some of the things you mentioned. That's another point, though, is when you go out on a date, it's a customary that the guy pays. The girl usually doesn't have to worry about that. They could go out to a bar, literally with no money, and they'll be able to eat and drink all they want. The guy has to pay for that. But, ergo, going back to the marriage thing, I kind of disagree. I used to think that. And I think a lot of people are believing like marriage is pretty risky, and it is, by the way. Everything is risky, technically. But I believe in sometimes you have to put yourself in risky positions. You can't have a side note. I think divorce is such a simple fallback that so many people go to. It's like, oh, it's not working, let's just leave. Like it shouldn't be like that. You should kind of work at it. So it sounds bad, but you should be enclosed in this relationship. You shouldn't be able to back out. So you give it your all. You present your best self. So does the other person, and that's what should make it worth it. That's in theory. That doesn't always work. But technically that's how it should be. If you can't back out of something, you have to be like, we're gonna have to make this work out, or we're gonna have a crappy life. And that's why, like, it should be binding. You should want to make it work. But there's so many people these days that if you get in an argument, then it's over. And that's not what it should be about.
like I get with I get in arguments with my parents all the time. You don't see me like disowning myself from the family. Like it's these things happen. You have somewhere along the line. I think people have lost the comprehension of the difference between disagreeing with someone and disrespecting someone. We're originally from New York. I don't hear an accent. I don't hear it. It's just not there. But now being in the more southern states, people have southern accents. And they're like, "Oh, you have a New York accent." I don't hear it personally. But to me, I think New York accents, there is none. We just have disrespect in our tone. We don't have an accent. There's just automatically disrespect in our voice. Don't think that's like I'm dissing your mom disrespect. It's just that there's a difference between disrespect and disagreeing with someone. You can like wholeheartedly, it's like, oh, I just view it in the same way. We could agree to disagree. That's fine. That's not a direct attack against you. That's not what disagreeing is. And I think recently people just detached those two things. So now it's like it people that they just go to hate because it's so easy and it's so effortless. And being nice, mom says it's effortless, but I think it requires all the effort in the world.
Yeah, I completely disagree. I don't know why. It's so difficult for people to understand, not all, but most, that you can disagree but be respectful.
Oh yeah.
So once they start attacking you personally, don't even bother with that type of person. Like, even like if you're in a relationship, don't even bother being in a relationship with that type of person. You have to be as open as possible. Like when they're like, "Well, I disagree, so I hope you burn in hell." Like, whoa, relax.
It's like not everyone is gonna share the same opinion as you. That doesn't mean they're like attacking you or like directly like putting effort into offending you or something like that. That's not what it is. We just have a difference of opinion. You could like this kind of music. Do I think you're a stupid person for listening to that music? Deep down, yes. But I'm not going to say that. That's just like my internal whatever. But on the surface thing, it's going to be like, cool. If it works for you, if it makes you happy, eight like 3.5 gold stars for you. Maybe it's not just for me. But like, there are people different from you. Know this. Like they're not going to be like going back to like the whole that whole roster of just uh all those things that woman wanted a guy to have. That Mr. Perfect doesn't exist. And that's actually another thing that I think a lot of girls, especially, are waiting for this perfect being that doesn't exist and will never exist to come along.
From a Disney movie.
Whatever, so Prince Charming, whatever, and just come along, sweep them off their feet, and just solve all their problems. Listen, Mr. Perfect, one doesn't exist, and let's just give Mr. Perfect a name. Let's just say Keanu Reeves is gonna come out of nowhere on his black stallion, and he's gonna see you out of the crowd and pick your sorry ass. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's a relationship is a team effort here, and just these, I think, where girls kind of falter is they're waiting for that Mr. Perfect. So it's almost like they have this. It's like a Price is Right type deal. It's like, would you like $1,000 cash now, guaranteed, or would you like what's behind curtain number two? And it's that mystery. It's that chance, that possibility, that something better, that $1,001 could be behind curtain number two. And I think that's where women kind of use guys as like they don't know how good of a guy they have. They're always looking for that, but something could be better around the corner. And they just fail to recognize what they already have. And that's like just that viewing standpoint of how it, like how you said, like being a parent and loving your child unconditionally. I think women share that same thing of they love their child unconditionally. So does men. Men see women as that same baby, like that unconditional love towards them. And if they just understood that at some aspects, I feel like men's mental health would just really be more understood. But I feel like it's more shunned away, and it's just more like, oh, just what are you, weak, or what are you, like, complaining, whatever. It's just brushed off, and that's sad, and that's not good.
That's a really good comparison of the Price is Right, of because people aren't content with what they have. They're always looking for what they could have. And I mean, it's always good to like grow and try to, be the best person you can be. But if you look at your life, in some aspects, you could be completely happy with what you already have. And I feel like if we start thinking that way, and I mean, that could also go into materialistic people or materialism. Like, you don't need the next best thing, bigger house, bigger car, and all that stuff. So I think that was a really cool comparison. Um, I wanted to bring up, we'll switch gears a little bit, and we'll go a little bit deeper into men's perspective. So I'm part of a father's Facebook group. Um, just to get, so what it is like, if you have questions, like, my kid hasn't stopped screaming for 3 days, what's wrong? Or, venting, like, I haven't slept for 2 weeks, I'm losing my mind. Or, they're kind of bounce ideas off, or they post funny posts and everything like that. And there was this one post. I first want to explain it to you, what the post was, get your perspective. I then want to, and I'll paraphrase everything. Um, I want to go over some of the comments that I remember reading. I want to get your perspective on it again. And then what, like, I really feel like comes from it. Like, this is like a really deep men's mental health issue. So the post was, it first had a picture, at a guy, and he had like his two sons in the back, and they're all smiling. So they were all happy and everything. And the second picture was, he was in his car alone and he was crying. And the post was like, this was the last picture of this guy before he took his life. And it described how he like lost his job. He wasn't able to like put food on the table. I forgot the number, but it was like $5,000 in debt. And like, he was just having a rough life, and he just thought that he wasn't worth it. And he decided it would be better for his family if he wasn't there anymore. So that was kind of the main post. And it is a scary topic. So what are your like first thoughts on it?
This is even myself. I don't like talk about this stuff because it's even difficult for me. Um, to give it a comparison, there is a photo of us. It was a photo taken of us on a gondola in Italy. It's in the parents' room, and I look at that picture every so often, and I just see the purity in everyone's faces. And for some reason, I was looking at this photo, and a thought came to my mind of how much how much brighter and how much bigger would their smiles be if my character in that photo wasn't there. And I think sometimes they would be better off in some aspects, whatever. And that kind of stuff, it really bothers me because this is a very real place to be in, and it's a very, very difficult subject to talk about because it's like the purity of like just the absolute divine place in a man's mental cruelty, in a man's mental health, that we kind of exist sometimes. And I have been in that existence for a while now, and it is, I wouldn't want this on anybody. I think what is that um Robert Williams, um why he was a comedian and why he was like so funny and so like he was just like you would think that would be the last person to kind of did what he did, um because he's like, I know what this darkness is, and I will do everything in my power to prevent misery from having the least amount of company as possible, because I know how bad it is and I wouldn't want this on my worst enemies. So he just had that like making lighthearted of everything and just that very lively, animated, funny persona that he always put up, and it was all a facade. And that's kind of where mental health, men's mental health is. It's we make light of it, but deep down we are in a place that we wouldn't want anyone to be. We're in a place where we wouldn't want anyone to even know exists. And it's it's a paradise for us sometimes because it's something that it's all that we know. And being in that perspective of like sometimes people would be better off if you weren't here, that's that's one of the mindsets that you kind of get in sometimes, because it's like you don't feel that you're worth anything anymore, and you feel like you bring nothing but pain and anguish to everyone around you. And that's really tough to think about, and it's scary. It's a scary place. So
Yeah.
that post, that's, I don't know, that subject matter is, it's a combination of, it feels like a place that the pain can stop, but it also comes off as a place of just pure selfishness. And it's both of the things at the same time. And that's what hurts.
Yeah. I think it's a very difficult thing to bring up. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up, because a lot of people's, or men's especially, mental health gets to that level that they think in that type of way. And you could even think of the burdens that we have, even if you're in like a family situation, let's say. So you have to worry about a job, making sure the bills are paid, you have food, the house, the car, all that stuff. And because you're the provider, you're the main person. There is no fallback. You're the main person. And that's why I feel like this is a little bit more, it attacks men a little bit differently than women. And so that was the post. I wanted to explain some of the comments that I ended up reading. I'm like, okay, it's one of those posts. Let me see what other people think of this. it completely hit me off guard. And I'll leave one comment to the end, which is the comment I ended up agreeing with. But one of the comments was like, so I mentioned he was $5,000 in debt. They focused in on that. They're like, he was $5,000 in debt. Well, I'm $50,000 in debt. He has to suck it up, and like I have more. They compared it. There was another one like, these are the type of people that I can't give benefit to the doubt. He left his children, and I can't agree with that, and like that type of mindset. And going through the idea of like leaving their children, and that's a selfish act. And there was a lot of comments like that of like almost attacking him. There was like also comparing, like, oh, I have a lot of stuff that I'm going through as well, but I don't, like, I fight through it. So what do you think of those comments?
Going back to the it's a place where we think we want to go to, the place where we think the pain stops, but we're met at the gate of selfishness that stops us. Comparing this, just never compare yourself to anybody. If you're doing something that works out for you, good on you. Comparing yourself to somebody is always going to put you in a state of mind that you just don't want to be in. So, seeing it as a selfish thing, here's the thing that people in this realm don't want to talk about, and what people can't understand. Being in that mindset, it gets to a point where you don't care. No, let me rephrase that. It gets to a point where that's not why you're doing it. You're not doing it to hurt the people around you. And that's kind of the reason some people are still here today. They still, like mom and dad, I would say, are the only reasons I'm still here. And if it wasn't for them, yeah, but it's, you just get to that point. Um, this is so difficult to talk about. You have incentives in life. You have your purposes in life. But why you want to throw that all away, the last thing that's on your mind is you want to hurt the people around you. And that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because we don't care what happens to us anymore. Like you're not afraid of death anymore. And it just sounds like a place where you would be better off, because where you are now, it feels like a nightmare that you just can't wake up from. It's not like we're trying to hurt the people around us. That's the last thing we want to do. And like how some people say, like, oh, it's a selfish act. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. But you just get so desensitized from yourself, not only from the people around you, not the world anymore. You just feel a disconnection from yourself. Like, life used to feel so pure. People used to have connections. People used to have emotions between each other. Like friendships and relationships, they felt genuine. They felt like they were real back then. And you just feel like life was just better back then. And now, I don't know if it's like I'm becoming desensitized to like the world or people around me, but people just don't feel genuine anymore. They don't feel real anymore. People, to me, I think some some people that I just encounter sometimes, they don't even feel like people like you and me. They just feel like a test sent from God for you to overcome. And if you don't overcome them, that is a challenge that you just didn't pass. But I reached a point where it's like, um, there's still more for me to do. And for my cause of death, I don't want to list a bunch of names that got me to that point. Like, there's so much for me to do, and so much I want to do, so much I want to become. That person that I want to become, that everyone wants to become, that person that will most likely never exist for most people. The person that they are now, no one wants to be. They always want to be that person that they will never become. And that is like, I'm losing my train of thought here, but it's like the whole selfishness aspect. It's true, but there's other reasons that keep people like me here sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it is very difficult to talk about. And I want you to know that I'm always here for you as well. I know as life goes on, things become more challenging. But that's one of the reasons why I want to continue with podcasting too, because I learned that if you don't have deep and meaningful conversations for a long time, it's not good for the mind. And I feel like the topics that we'll touch on through this podcast, um, that helps both of us. I feel like this is more of a therapy than therapy itself. But I will, so I'll state like the other comment, and that's the main reason why I brought this up, because I feel like this is one of the core principles of why men's mental health exists, or why men's mental health isn't talked about, or yeah, it almost doesn't exist. Someone else's comment was doing the same thing I was, going through all these other comments, and they're like, this is exactly the reason why basically men's mental health can't be cured. Because this person, even if he reached out, let's say he posted about this, people would still attack him. We're trying to express our feelings, our problems, our emotions. And all these people were attacking this guy. It, for me at least, it blew my mind of how people were attacking this guy. He was a human being going through shit just like all of us. And then you got these people comparing him to this guy, or like how he's got to like suck it up and move forward just like the rest of us. This is why men's mental health will probably not anytime soon will ever be cured, because even if we bring it up, we'll be attacked for it. And that comment I completely agreed with. I was amazed of how now I didn't go into backstory. I don't know if this whole story was true and everything, but it was the concept that if you bring up your problems, no one will listen.
With those posts of like people are willingly attacking him and stuff, because it is effortless to hate behind a phone screen or a computer screen. If you eliminate consequence from people's action, chaos ensues. And I think where social media has brought us today, it has diluted what being a human being is to a point where people don't feel real anymore. And they just say whatever they want. It is effortless to hate, that they just choose to hate because it's just easier. It's easier. It's like if I hand you a drink and you don't know what it is easier for you to ask me what it is than for you to take a sip and decipher what it is you're drinking right now. It's just easier to just batter someone than it is to comfort them, because comforting people requires effort and it requires attentive care, and it requires conversation and understanding. And I think I noticed this with a guy at work. There's two different types of talkers. There's talkers, people that talk, and then there's conversationalists. People that talk, they just talk. That's all they do. There is no there's no two sides to the conversation. There is no conversation. He just talks and talks and talks and talks. No one is paying attention. No one cares. Everyone is yesing him to death, and you just want to be like, man, read the room. No one is engaging with you anymore, and he's just oblivious to this. It just keeps talking and talking and talking, and there's nothing that comes from it. That's just the thing. A conversationalist is two sides, and one side may disagree or have a difference in opinion, whatever, but there's still like what we're having now. You talk, then I talk. This is what conversations, this is what understanding is, this is what addressing mental health is. It's conversation and it's understanding, and we have lost that in the modern day because it requires effort, and people have become so lazy that the people like you and me were giving up because there's more of them than there are of us.
I wanted to let that sit for a couple seconds because that's ridiculously important. In this modern era, that's why I want to do podcasts. That's how you're supposed to conversate with people. There should be discussions. There shouldn't be like a one sentence, and that's you can't explain anything in a minute. That's why so many people are having disagreements. You could say anything, and I could find something wrong with it. But in a conversation or a discussion, it will take. We're going on over an hour right now. It takes hours to discuss certain topics. Basically everything. It could take days or years. But people don't think in that type of time duration. And I think it was really important what you said. Like, there are certain people that are like giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, well, this is just how the world is, and I feel that sometimes. But I don't want to be like that, because then those people will win. The people that just shouldn't be winning. I don't know how I could go deeper. We're already an hour in. I could go deeper with it, but it gets to a point where, like, all right, it's called appeasement. World War II. So, all right. So there could be a person. They're kind of like a little pushy, let's say. And the person appeases that person. It's like, all right, I don't agree with it, but do whatever you want. And that other person sees that. So they do it a little more. And the person continues to appease them, like, all right, continue or whatever. So if you don't stand up and draw that line in the sand, like, no, this is wrong, and I'm going to stand up for it, we're not there yet in society. I feel anyway. That there's so much appeasement going on, and we're not standing up for what's right anymore. We're not talking because everyone's self-censoring. We can't talk about certain topics anymore. And that's the problem. We're not talking about what's right, what's important. And that's why I want to keep pushing forward with what we're doing. I think it's important. And I don't want to give up on that.
Yeah, people's attention spans, they have just dwindled over the years, and they don't realize that relationships, they take time. Just friendships, they take time, they take effort, and people are not willing to put in that effort. So it's like, what exactly are you expecting to come from anything when everything's just expected? Like we all just become spoiled in a way that everything, we just want everything just instant ramen noodles like that. It's like it's like I'm hungry. Okay, in the next 60 seconds you'll have food. Like, no, it takes well over 30 minutes to prepare like a nutritious meal, but they rather sacrifice quality for something quick. Why do you think McDonald's is worth billions of dollars? Because convenience. People want food now. Amazon Prime now. I want my package now. I want the food now. Amazon Prime, put the food down my throat right now. Now. It's everything takes time. Like just heating up some ragu sauce ain't gonna be as good as some bolognese that you just concocted and you let sit. Like if you just get some like pulled pork sandwich that's been sitting for 10 minutes, yeah, it's gonna taste like what most pulled pork sandwiches do. Absolutely nothing. Okay. And then if you want that smoked, yo, this has been cooking. It's been cooking on that grind, under that pressure cooker for 9 hours, and you taste every hour. You know what I mean? It's everything takes time. And that's where the quality is. That's where the quality men are. We're in that 9-hour pressure cooker. And I don't know where I'm going.
I'm talking that barbecue meat. That's a good point, though. We're looking for those men that have been smoking for 9 hours. That smoked meat.
They've been marinating in them juices.
None of those junior pick and cheeseburgers from McDonald's.
Don't expect lifelong commitment from instant ramen noodle people. That's basically what I'm getting at.
That's a good point. So if we want to wrap up, because we talked about a lot of good points, and a lot of people could be in like depressed moods and everything. And what do you think are some ways to like possibly get out of that?
You have to find things that give you purpose. You have to find people that give you purpose. You have to find things that make you happy. And if it's something that's weird, if it's something that's taboo, something that's not of the norm, who cares? It does not matter. You have to surround yourself with people that give you purpose, that give you meaning, and give you fulfillment and happiness. That's the whole point. That even, it could be one person. It may not be like a flock of, multiple people. If that one person gives you purpose, or gives you just gives you fulfillment and satisfaction, and just that make you feel relevant, that make you feel like you're not just a space that a car is taking up, that the guy behind you could just fill in that space and you wouldn't be missed at all. if that person makes you feel like you have, like, if you're on the road, I think about this sometimes. It's like if you're on the road and the decisions you make, the turns that you make alter how other people are coming at you or like driving. Like if you make a difference in them driving, in like the surface level way of looking at it, you essentially have a purpose of being there. If you just coast through life and you're making, like, you're not getting in other people's way and you feel like if I wasn't here, nothing would change, that's a terrible place to be in because viewing life like that, it's a dangerous game, and being in depression, it absolutely blows. And just being in and out of depression, it feels like you're stuck in it. It's I don't think there's really a way to get out of it. It just gets easier. And there's things that it feels like there's just like multiple knives in your back and in your heart, and that you feel like there's no more tears left to cry, there's no blood left to drain, but for some reason something is keeping you alive, even though if there's nothing in you, there's no substance, there's no anything. If there's that driving force that's keeping you in this existence, latch onto that, because you may be dead inside and out, but there is a reason why you are still here. And just, if you know what that is, latch onto it and never let go. If you don't know what that is, find it, because there's reasons to stay. Let's put it that way. I wish I could say it gets better along the way, but maybe that purpose just hasn't got to you yet. And
Mm.
that's, you have to be around long enough for that, for you to find that. Maybe it just didn't get to you in a timely manner or the time that you would like, but it's out there. It just, she's taking her sweet ass time is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's a really good point of having that purpose and that passion. It just gives you that fire inside of you a little bit more. If you don't have that purpose or passion, you're kind of just like that empty soul wandering with no meaning. And that's where you don't want to be. And it's easier said than done. To add as well, I feel like writing down helps a lot.
Mm.
If and it doesn't even have to be to anyone. I feel like it's a way to get stuff off your chest or off your back. Um, of like just how you're feeling. You just write it down, and it also that also helps identify like your feelings or your problems. Once you identify them, then you might be able to figure out a way to solve them or move forward and grow from that. So I think writing is a good way as well that I learned along the way anyway.
The first step to solving a problem is identifying that there is one.
Yeah.
There are instances like there where I think a lot of people should just seek help and just ask for just some kind of, like, I need to talk to someone, that kind of stuff. When it reaches a point where you don't care what happens to you, or you just find yourself gravitating towards depression and and just that mindset, that like that vacancy in you, when you start to favor that or fantasize about that, that's where I think it gets to a concerning state that it needs to be addressed and really focused on. There were instances where I was just like laying on the floor staring up at the ceiling, or if it was just raining like hard as it does here and towards the south, I would just I remember this one time I went. There's a lake by our place, and it was just raining, and I drove down to the lake, and I sat along the shore, and it just rained, and it's like it was a place that, and a mindset. I'm referring to like a place being that mindset. It's that place that you don't want to be, but it's all that you know, and it's a place where you feel safe, but almost like misery is wrapping her arms around you. Like there's this just a comfort in it. And that if you reach that point, again, there is a purpose out there for you. That if that comes in a form of a person or an art or some kind of outlet, seek help, seek connections, seek communication, seek just get experimental with things, just because that like purpose, it will come to you at just the most random and weird and most unconventional times, and when it does, you're going to look back in those times and say, wow, I was selfish in thinking that way. So just find that strength, find that purpose in life.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's unfortunately a downward spiral when you're in that place, and it's like even if someone's like trying to cheer you up, you're like, no, shut up. Like
Mm.
if like it gets to a point, if happy people are around you, they annoy you.
It's like,
And
what are you
it's
so happy about?
yeah, and you get in that downward spiral, and it's very, very dangerous because that could bring you all the way down. Um, but I also heard an interesting quote. I sometimes listen to Jordan Peterson a lot, and he goes pretty deep into things. And some people like him, some people don't, whatever. Um, but he mentioned in the darkest of places, there will be a light.
Mm.
And I thought that was interesting. And I related that to my life, like, because I'm trying to be as conscious as possible of like what the world really is.
Mm.
And it's controlled by just trash. You see how the world actually runs, the people in it, or most, there are some gems and everything. But you see how life is, and you're like, it's kind of crappy. But when you see through all that crap, through all the like the the sludge and garbage, you sometimes notice like positive things or like just like bright situations. Like even through all of this, you find like a sliver of hope almost. And it's
Mm.
interesting. Like through all of this, you could argue like we're living in hell right now, but there's still some like goodness sprinkled in there. And I think that's kind of interesting.
Darkness is just the absence of light. It doesn't mean that there isn't any light. There's just more dark than there is light. Same thing, vice versa. That means it's basically like if it's like a spectrum of like a 100%, you could have the darkness setting at 99%, but it's out of 100, and you can't have like one without the other. That light is at 1%, but it is still in existence. So it I don't think it ever reaches 100%, and I don't think people should ever think it does, because it doesn't. It just can't. Like how the world is, it may feel like little. I look at it as like the darkness of space.
I was going to say
Uh,
that.
there's stars. To me, unfortunately, in my perspective, I feel like I live in darkness, and when I look up, all I see is stars, to which the glimmer is of a dead sun that has died millions and millions of years ago, and I am seeing just the aftermath of it, a light that doesn't exist anymore. That's my perspective. Unfortunately, I'm in it. It really can't do much to change my perspective, but maybe it's good temporarily to have that delusion sometimes that, oh, there is that light in that darkness. But in reality, I don't know if you could tell, I haven't found that incentive or purpose yet. That's still on its way, but that currently, if like how I view things, and but it's like I don't know.
Yeah. I'd say it really is all about perspective. I feel like there is a lot of darkness. Um, but I will say if and hopefully when people get out of that and they find like that purpose or they find that light and they look back, they realize that light exists because there is that darkness. So like you said, you can't have one without the other. So there can't be joy without sorrow. If there was nothing, then it would be kind of bland.
It's like one of those stars. A lot of them may be dead. A lot of them may have been died for millions and millions of years, but there is a chance that one of them could still be alive. And I think finding a purpose in someone else, you question when they look up at the same star, do they see and feel the same thing? Like if I was this one book I remember reading in high school, I forgot what it was. Um, but he was talking about his wife that passed away and that she was in the afterlife or something like that. And he looked up at the sky and he asked, when you look up at the moon, are we looking at the same one? And that kind of like resonated with me a little bit. And it's like my hope is out, like my purpose and my incentive is out there, and it's that one still alive star. And I hope when other people look up and see that same star, they not want, but need that same thing. And you coming into an agreement, like an agreement with yourself and that person, making that star real again, and just making it like real for the two of you. It's That's the whole point. That's It doesn't matter if it's real or not. It matters if it's real to the two of you. I don't know, man.
That too. Yeah, that's interesting. And technically, if you're searching for that one real star, you have to have that hope and belief that it exists, or else you wouldn't search for it. So you have to have that hope first, and then if and hopefully we do find it, then that's why we find it. It's because we had that hope.
Not even in a religious standpoint. It's just having that hope for yourself that you feel like there is more for you. Like you're hoping for a better life for yourself. Knowing that that's possible, that's what kind of drives you a little bit. Like, identifying that you are in a low position in life, that's like half the battle. But just knowing that there's possibly a way out of it, and just repeating to yourself that I'm in a low point right now, but I know it could it could rebound, it could rubber band. That like possibility, that faith in yourself is the most important thing to have. It's like, I'm worth more than this, and I have more to do, more to prove, more to see, more to prove to myself than to just give up.
Mhm. That brought, if we want to start ending on a couple points, but that brought up two thoughts in my head. Is that one saying, "This too shall pass"?
Mm.
You have that mindset, and also I forgot where I heard this from. Um, it might have been Steve Harvey, honestly, because he's pretty motivational sometimes. But he's like, if you look at every single bad situation you've been through, you survived 100% of them.
Hmm.
And I thought that was pretty interesting. That's kind of true. Like, we've been through a lot of stuff, but you survived it all.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Or uh, my modified version of that is, what doesn't kill you, I can let it hate me. It could stay mad. I don't care.
Yeah.
So, leaving off on that kind of note, in a more lukewarm response, a little bit, that's kind of what we like to talk about around here of Into the Void. We like to talk about subjects that are too difficult to talk about, to mention, to disclose. But this is what it's all about, of reigniting conversation, because we seem to have lost that in the modern era. Everything takes effort. It takes effort in achieving anything, in becoming anything, not in just like the real world, but in yourself, just becoming your true self. It takes a lot of effort. And just the effort that we went into creating this episode took a part of us, but it feels like we've gotten something in return. There's a lot of challenges a lot of people will come to. Just know that it does get better, but you just have to make it better. You need to know your worth and know that there is a purpose out there for you that just makes life worth living. So this has been a rather interesting episode of Into the Void. I think we're going to end it here, because if we keep going, I'm going to start crying again. So, again, thank you for tuning in so much. This has been Into the Void. I am Nick. That's Dan. Hold up, strike that, reverse it. This is Into the Void. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, stay positive, stay truthful to yourself, and fuck everybody else. And there you go. So,
See you in the next one.
yeah.